I'm inside the former Riggs National Bank in Washington, D.C. that is going through this major renovation for the Milken Center for the Advancement of the American Dream. It's pretty incredible the amount of restoration and construction going on right now. It's a beautiful facility with a ton of history. Apparently, the funds to buy Alaska came out of this building, and Abraham Lincoln had a lockbox here, and I believe it held something like 20-something presidents' personal money. So it's just incredible history. Check out this gigantic vault door. Look at how thick this is. Hand for scale. Usually I take you into other people's jobs, but this time I'm taking you into one of my own through my own sound agency, Defacto Sound.
And one of the original colonies. Rather, I was.
We have the Abraham Lincoln talking to us. So let's go inside and check this out, and I'll tell you what we're up to. So, stunningly beautiful theater. We have 23 speakers that are somewhat traditional on the theatrical mix side, which is why we were primarily brought in. So what we have here is up here, we have left, center, right, actually up high, down firing. We have subwoofers hanging from the ceiling as well. So we have side, 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 rear, rear, rear. We have Kate. We have Jade. And then we have more side, side, side. And really what we're up to is how do we make our mix in our smaller surround rooms translate into a large room like this. So what we've been doing is we had Jade from our team at Defacto Sound implement our mix through Pro Tools and such. We tied right into what, like a Dante system?
Yeah, using Dante into their Vertex media server.
So Dante is basically like a...
It's audio over Ethernet, audio and video over Ethernet. So it's basically using Ethernet to like digitally patch straight into their media server system.
Basically, it's like it all comes out of this stuff, but we were able to patch into it to effectively mix in this room and then take our notes back to our team, back in their studios to keep throwing things back over the fence for us to implement here on site. The biggest complication is really just getting this room sounding like what we expect it in our smaller rooms. We went through all of these speakers with calibration in mind, ran noise through everything. They had a professional tuner come in and tune the room, but I wanted to come in and confirm that tuning. And so now we have effects spinning around the room. We have subwoofer. We have this room that is now really coming to life and feels like this big theatrical space. We've dialed it in. We've spent 2 days here. It sounds awesome, and I'm really proud of how it's come together. So I think now I'm just going to go do a little sightseeing. So I'll take you along. All right, so I want to show you just how close I am to the White House. So right here, I'm at the corner of 15th and Pennsylvania Avenue, and right over there is the White House, which I'll show in a moment. Right here is the former Riggs National Bank, which is where we're doing our install. And since I can't walk to the White House from this way, they have it blocked, I will walk around the corner and show you just how close this is. Here's another side shot of this stunning historical building here. It is pretty cool. So I'm in Lafayette Square, which is right north of the White House, and I'll show you the White House in a minute, but first I want to tell you my story. So I don't broadcast it a lot, but I run a sound design agency called Defacto Sound. Prior to Defacto Sound, I worked in Los Angeles at NBC and Fox, and back in the day, I just loved the Discovery Channel. And I got an interview with the Discovery Channel just a few miles north of me, right here in Silver Spring, Maryland, when they were headquartered there. So I moved all the way from Los Angeles, all the way to the East Coast to work at the Discovery Channel, and I loved it. It was such a great job. But at the time, I was just getting really itchy to work with all kinds of other collaborators, and some of my friends were moving on to other cool things. And so I found myself really wanting to start my own agency. And so this was 15 years ago, and I started it right in DC, just a few miles north here. I lived in this town for quite some time. I love this town, I miss it. I think it's the greatest place to visit if you have never been here. There's so many things to do, there's so many museums, so much history, so many things to dig into. Another thing that came out of my sound design studio is my podcast. That's another thing I don't talk about much here on YouTube. But about 10 years ago, out of my studio, I started doing an audio-only podcast called 20,000 Hertz. It really grew significantly. We have, as of me recording this, 220 highly produced episodes that takes anywhere from 200 to 300 hours to make. But one of the biggest motivations that I had was to open it up to visuals, to where I can take you alongside some of my jobs, meet interesting people, and, show you cool sound situations. But that podcast really grew immensely. And I've had a lot of cool things happen because of the podcast. Some I've posted right here on YouTube. But one that I was never able to publish, that I wish I could have published, was I've been inside the West Wing of the White House twice. And it was a crazy experience. But first, here is the White House. Pretty incredible. But my story starts over on the West Wing, which is this way. So I had a buddy who worked as the videographer for the Obama administration. And while he was there, he gave me 2 tours, one of which was for the 20,000 Hertz podcast. For those of you who know the podcast, I never posted a show about the White House, but I had all kinds of tape. The problem was I could never find a hook. I just really wanted to get into the White House, and the podcast can sometimes get me there. And so right over here, where I'm about to show you, is where Secret Service is. This is where I went in, right over here. And it was cool because my buddy had just been off-boarded because they were transitioning administrations. And so we walk up here, and even though he had been here throughout multiple years, the Secret Service are no joke. They will get on you if they don't know who you are, if you don't have the right pass. So that was cool right off the bat. But I went right through these gates. I walked right up here on the other side of this gate, kind of right through here is kind of where the West Wing starts. Now, when I was over there, I meet one of the White House staffers, and this White House staffer is walking around the Property Brothers, like giving the Property Brothers a tour. Those 2 guys from HGTV, like the Scott brothers. So I have this staffer come over to me and say, "Oh, what's your name?" And I'm like, "Oh, my name's Dallas. I do a podcast called 20,000 Hertz. No joke. He's like, "Are you kidding me? I love that podcast." And he ditches the Property Brothers and starts talking to me for like a chunk of time. And I'm like, those guys are way more important than me. I just do a podcast. But that happened right over here, and I have photos to prove it, which I will now insert right now. So I'll tell you what happened on the inside. I basically was just rolling audio the whole time. It was during a busy day. I remember my friend who was walking me around was like, "You probably shouldn't use any of this audio because that's the Secretary of State right there talking about some very international things at the time." And so I just got too shy to ever use it. And plus there was really no hook. I was trying to go in going like the sounds of the White House, but it was one of those episodes that like it never made any sense. So I have all this tape of really just nothing in particular happening. But I will tell you the observations that I had when I was listening inside this space. There's a din of sound happening all the time in the White House, and I have a hunch that it probably has something to do with a very intense HVAC system, because I remember the sound of the HVAC sounded a lot more intense than just a normal home or commercial HVAC. As you could imagine, if there was any sort of like attacks in any sort of way, like they probably have some things in that building to be able to cycle that or seal it off or anything. And so I remember the sound inside was very different than what any place I'd ever experienced. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was something that I noticed, and it was a quite loud din the whole time. So when I went into the Oval Office and poked my head in, The thing that really jumped out about the Oval was, and this is where the President of the United States is famously where they work for all of the people internationally watching this. The Oval Office, there were two things that jumped out, neither which was sound. Sound, it was very quiet. That was awesome. But what really jumped out to me is it smelled good, very pleasing. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was a very pleasing, neutral smell. And then the other thing was the lighting, like the ambient lighting. Like you look up, there's not a lot of photos, but if you can see like the pictures of the dome above it, it's a very beautiful dome, and all the light is kind of recessed around it. And so it's all this light shining up on the dome, which then gives you the light in the space. So it's a very intimate and warm type of space. The other thing that jumped out to me is that ceilings were low, the rooms were small. All of it looks bigger on camera. And it was, while I was there, I was just like, this doesn't even feel real. It doesn't feel big enough. It doesn't feel like large enough. And that's really what struck me. But being in there was surreal. It's never quite what you think it's gonna be. You think it's gonna be like bigger and grander, but it's just a real building that does real building things. The corridors are a lot smaller than you may realize. And it's not grand. There's definitely like a lot of offshoots and places I couldn't go. But the fact that I could get in the West Wing, of all places, I feel like that would be the most secure place, but I was able to get a full tour of that. So that is my White House story that I've been sitting on for, like 7, 8 years now, and I've never told it publicly. So while I have tape and I have this cool experience, never did anything for the podcast and never did anything for YouTube until now. So I love this town. I recommend everyone coming to visit this. If you have access to Washington, D.C., come up here. It's just such a cool place. It's a melting pot of incredible people, incredible food, and just incredible museums, incredible experiences, and so much history here. So it's a very special place for me. I built my family here. My family loves it, I love it, and I encourage you to come check this out. So lastly, to try to end this thing, I don't plug my podcast very often, but it's extraordinarily special. If you are unaware of what 20,000 Hertz is, first of all, it's spelled out without any numbers, TWE 20,000 Hertz, and you can find it in any podcast player. And it's won 4 Webbies, it's won 4 Ambies. If you don't know what the Ambies are, it's kind of like the Oscars of podcasting. We've done shows on everything you can possibly think of with some of the most interesting people. It is beautiful at times. Sometimes it's going to make you cry. Sometimes it's going to make you laugh. But I believe it's the podcast that I always wanted. It's the podcast that I always dreamt of. And it sounds amazing. If you've heard one episode of 20,000 Hertz, you've only heard one episode of 20,000 Hertz. There's a very big arc that goes over the whole thing. And so this is my pitch to YouTube. If you're somebody who listens to podcasts, open up your podcast player, look up 20,000 Hertz, all spelled out, and tap subscribe. And every episode is evergreen, so you can start anywhere. So that's what I'd recommend you do right now. So thanks for following me on this journey here in DC in this special place. Thank you for going on a job with me, and I'll catch you next time.